All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to have Cody Mosier as our guest speaker again, and he is a senior hydrologist at the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. So, Cody, we'll turn it over to you whenever you're ready. And if anyone has any questions for Cody, feel free to enter them in the chat and we'll go over them at the end.
All right, thanks for that introduction. I'm Cody Mosier, hydrologist at the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center, and Aaron asked me to provide a water supply briefing for the upper and lower Colorado River basins today. So I have a few slides to share. I'm going to stop video just to save some bandwidth here. Okay. So first, just a little bit about what we do here at the CBRFC, Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. So we have a hydrologic model, and within that model, so it simulates soil moisture, snow accumulation and melt, reservoirs, routing, irrigation demand return flows, and those unmeasured losses and gains that are not measured in real time. So we are open every day of the year, and there's complex terrain, very high elevations, especially in the upper Colorado River Basin, uh, and very complex systems to model. There's just tons of diversions and reservoirs out there, so complex water management going on. Our main forecast products are shown here, starting with the 10-day. So these are hourly real-time stream flow forecasts. So we're providing stream height and stream flow forecast out 10 days at about 425 locations. So these include any real-time reservoir operations and year-round decision support, anything from high flows and emergency response to low flows during summer, and endangered fish flows. Our modeling and forecasts are used to make some of those decisions on when to release water from upstream reservoirs. And then we also provide water supply forecasts at a fewer locations. That's the map in the middle there, those triangles. Those are the places we put out a water supply forecast for. And then we do also provide some spring peak flow forecast information when the snow starts to melt. So that's a little bit about what we do. And then jumping right into some recent weather back June through September 2024. So this spans the monsoon season. So we're looking at precip as a percent of average, graphic on the left. So um, this is a percent of average. So the blues kind of stand out. Those are areas with above average precipitation. The reds, areas with below average precipitation. Um, Oranges, yellows, and greens, kind of near to below average range. So you can see how the June through September precipitation came in as a percent of average. It was above average across southwest Colorado. So areas like the Roaring Fork and the Gunnison, Dolores, and San Juan basins picked up above average precipitation. While the lower Colorado River Basin precip during this period came in near to below average. And then temperatures, it was very warm period, June through September, with much of Arizona seeing record warm temperatures during this period. So that's important because it impacts soil moisture. So we're looking at a couple graphics on this slide related to our hydrologic model soil moisture conditions. So these impact water supply and runoff. So areas with above normal soil moisture, um, those are areas that will see increased runoff efficiency when the snow starts to melt. And areas with below normal soil moisture, a negative impact on the water supply outlook due to decreased runoff efficiency. So the graphic on the left, these are showing, the graphic is showing the soil moisture as a percent of average, while the graphic on the right is showing the soil moisture compared to a year ago. So you can look at these two in tandem and say, where am I at? So for example, looking at this upper section here, um, so in the upper green headwaters, this is like southwest Wyoming, we can see that soil moisture conditions are below normal and worse compared to last year. So these are two graphics, find your area of interest. In the lower Colorado River Basin, we're seeing across Arizona and the upper Gila headwaters, below normal soil moisture conditions, and those are similar or worse compared to last year. Um, and then those areas that did benefit from that monsoon precipitation, like southwest Colorado, some of the better soil moisture conditions and better compared to last year. And then looking at the first 3 months of water year 2025, so October, November, December, precipitation as a percent of average. So across the lower Colorado River Basin, it's been one of the driest starts to winter on record. So not a lot of precipitation occurring down there over the last 3.5 months or so. Um, the storms have really been favoring central and northern basins, a persistent northerly storm track. So that's kept rain and snowfall confined to the upper Colorado River Basin and the Great Basin, um, where that October through December precipitation near average. So lots of graphics here by month, and then the 3 month um, summation, and then the table with the values. I'm not going to step through all these numbers. There's a bunch on here. You can come back and reference these later if you'd like. But yeah, you can see this last column in the table, October through December. This table is broken down. We have the upper Colorado River Basin, the top half of the table broken down by sub area, with Lake Powell on the top. So October through December precipitation above Lake Powell was about 96% of average. In the lower Colorado River Basin, October, there was some precip down there as well as November, and it really dried out in December. With October through December precipitation across the lower basin well below average. And then looking at the first 2 weeks of January here, with the graphic on the left showing all areas, and then the one in the middle is the same data set. It's just trimmed to the highest elevation areas that contribute most to the spring runoff. So it filters out some of the noise. So the first 2 weeks of January continued to be dry across Arizona and the lower Colorado River Basin, really the southern basins, southern Utah, southwest Colorado, not seen much or any precipitation. The last 2 weeks, storms have been continuing to kind of brush the northern, northeastern basins like the Upper Green, White Yampa, and the Colorado River headwaters. And then this here I grabbed from the Weather Forecast Office in Flagstaff, Arizona. They have a nice graphic here showing how dry it has been to start the winter. So these are December 1st through January 15th. Precip totals at various locations and almost everywhere. It's been the driest December 1st through mid-January period on record. Yeah, little to no precip across Arizona. So into snowpack conditions. So mid-January snowpack conditions, graphic form on the left here. So the same color scheme here, the blues, better conditions were oranges and reds, pinks below normal snowpack conditions. So you can see kind of by region across the upper Colorado River Basin, 60 to 115% of normal snowpack conditions as of yesterday. So you can see where we're sitting back on January 1st and then mid-January, how that's changed. So not huge changes, some minor gains in SWE across those northern areas that have seen precipitation. And then as you move south into southwest Colorado, into Arizona, seen snow water equivalent declines. So snowpack is falling even further behind in those southern areas. So here's a way to look at another way to look at snowpack. So this is above Lake Powell. How has the snowpack been tracking since October 1st? So we have a dashed line. That's the 1991 through 2020 median or normal trace, and the blue line is this year. So we got off to above normal start in November. We had a pretty big event around Thanksgiving where storm favored central basins but missed the northern and southernmost areas like the Upper Green in Arizona. And then we dried out for most of December, and then storms started picking back up above Lake Powell late December, with the storms favoring northern areas with less across those southern basins, and Arizona missed again. So you can see, as these percentages on the first of the month, 125 on December 1st, 94% January 1st, and pretty similar, 93% mid-January. This is above Lake Powell snowpack conditions from our model. And then, so we covered soil moisture conditions and snowpack conditions. Those are some of the big drivers of the water supply forecast that we put out. Here we're looking at our January 1st water supply forecast as a percent of normal here. In the graphic, and then the table in the middle right of the slide broken down by locations, some of the more well-known locations. So Lake Powell, or January 1st forecast, 5150 CAF. CAF stands for 1,000 acre feet. This can also be interpreted as 5.15 million acre feet, and that's 81% of the 1991 through 2020 normal runoff. And these are April through July forecasts. That's when most of the runoff occurs in the upper basin. In the lower basin, we have about a dozen water supply forecast locations down there, and we're forecasting January through May period. So you can see the volumes associated with some of these locations, what we're forecasting to come in for that January through May period, and how that volume is compared to the 1991 through 2020 normal. So, with generally near below normal soil moisture conditions and near below normal snowpack conditions across most areas, the water supply outlook then is not surprising that it's below normal in a lot of areas and well below normal across the lower basin, given how dry it's been down there. So a little bit uh, more on the Lake Powell water supply forecast. So the graphic on the left is showing those triangle locations where we put out a water supply forecast, and we're overlaying our model snow, these shaded areas in the background. That's our model snow as a percent of median or normal. So you can see, not surprising, we have red triangles in a lot of areas that have below normal snowpack conditions, with Lake Powell being down here circled. And then this is our water supply forecast graphic that we issue. So the way to interpret this, so we're plotting volume of water on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. So on January 1st, we issued an official water supply forecast. That is a probabilistic forecast, so it's a range of values and the probabilities associated with each. So, for example, the bottom of the range, the bottom of the blue shaded area here, this represents a volume that would have a 90% chance of being exceeded. And in this case, 3.2 million acre feet at Lake Powell, and then vice versa, the top of the blue shaded area, this would be the volume that would have a 10% chance of being exceeded. So a wetter, if we were to get wet, now through the end of July, very wet, we would see a volume of 9.4 million acre feet. That would be a volume that has a 10% chance of being exceeded. And then the middle dot here, this represents the volume that would have a 50% chance of being exceeded or not being exceeded. And that value again, 5.15 million acre feet, which is 81% of average. And some additional information in the header of the graphic. So I grabbed this yesterday. So you can see our model run yesterday, January 15th. This has come down since the first of the month due to the drier than average first 2 weeks of January. So our latest guidance from our model is around 4.9 million acre feet. And we'll be updating this forecast at Lake Powell later today, and we provide updated forecasts for all locations the first week of the month, January through June. Talking now a little bit about ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So the Climate Prediction Center put out this update about a week ago, and they issued a La Nina advisory. So their statement, La Nina conditions expected to persist through April, with a transition to ENSO neutral conditions likely during the March through May period. So what does that mean? A couple graphics on the bottom here. So La Nina advisory, La Nina winters, typically but not always drier across Arizona and the lower Colorado River Basin. And that has been the case thus far. Here we're looking at past week La Nina events. So the December, January, February precipitation that has occurred in past week La Nina events. So there is correlation with drier winters in the lower basin, but there's still plenty of variability. You can see, looking at each one of these graphics, drier, wetter, dry, generally drier across Arizona, but not always the case. 2022, 2023 winter was one of the wettest on record, and that was a weak La Nina event. So no guarantee. It's certainly trending drier than average and has been for several months, but we'll see come the end of the season how it played out. When it comes to the ENSO signal in the upper Colorado River Basin, there's a much weaker winter weather signal in the upper basin when it comes to ENSO status. And here we're looking at just a summary of our lower basin water supply forecasts. So again, about a dozen locations that we put out a water supply forecast in the lower basin. We're seeing the dark reds, pinks, well below normal, given how dry it's been down there. Generally 50% or less of normal volumes expected down there across the lower basin this season. And our forecasts do take into account the longer term weather outlook, which is leaning drier due to La Nina. So here we're looking at just an example in the Salt River Basin. This is the Salt near Roosevelt, circled here on the map with the forecast in the upper right. So we're forecasting 95,000 acre feet here for that January through May period, which is just 38% of the 30-year median. And then looking at snowpack in the lower right. So here we're looking at the Salt River Basin Three traces here. The dashed line is normal, green line is last year, and the blue line is this year. So there was a little bit of snow here in November, but since then, 0% of normal since December down here. So very, very poor, very dry start across the lower basin. And then looking at what to expect in the next couple weeks weather-wise. So the graphic here, this is showing the 7-day precipitation forecast for our area. So day one, this would be today into tomorrow morning. There's some slight chances for rain and snow showers across central Arizona, but not much, but it is something. And then getting into tomorrow and into the weekend, there's some additional precipitation forecasts across those northern and eastern areas that have been getting hit with precipitation. And then the southern basins after today, just not much down there. So 7-day totals up to 3/4 of an inch max. Looks like, so the bottom right of this graphic, this is the 7-day total. Some greens pop out there. So looks like the best chance for the highest precipitation is in the Colorado headwaters area in northwest Colorado. And then these are products that the Climate Prediction Center puts out. These show, for example, the graphic on the left here, they're predicting the probability of above normal, normal, or below normal precipitation. And this is for the 8 to 14 day period. So this would be January 23rd through January 29th. And the various shaded areas showing, what they're forecasting with, and we're seeing a low probability of wetter than average weather across the entire western U.S. for this 8 to 14 day period. So not looking like a huge pattern change that we're gonna get wet here in the next week or two, really anywhere. So summary, just 3 graphics here: the soil moisture on the left, the snowpack conditions in the center, and the mid-January water supply outlook on the right. So again, it's focusing in on some of the better areas, those yellow green triangles across western Colorado. Those areas have better soil moisture conditions and better snowpack conditions, so it's driving the water supply forecast a little bit better than some of the other areas with soil moisture conditions and snowpack conditions that aren't as good. So below normal volumes currently expected in those areas, with the lower basin seeing very, very dry, well below normal volume forecasts. So we do provide some water supply briefings from the CBRFC around the beginning of the month. Those started last month and they go through early May. So if you're interested in attending those, you can through our website, cbrfc.noaa.gov. So we typically have a news banner up this time of year where you can register using this link. So you can see when they're scheduled there. They're typically at 10 a.m. And then we also do we put on a spring peak flow briefing around mid-March. So March 19th this year. And then we post these slides in a recording on our page as well if you're interested in checking it out afterwards. And here's how to get in touch with us. So we have a staff of less than 15 with very, very, we're all involved in different basins. So you can see for this season who's forecasting what area. If you have questions about a specific basin, you can get in touch with them. Email address is here. You can reach out to us at our office email and number here. You'll be able to get in touch with the lead forecaster for the day. A couple links here for our webpage and presentations. And then thought I'd mention that we do have a job opening for hydro met, so hydrologist or meteorologist. If you or anybody know is interested, yeah, please pass it along to them. And yeah, that's all I had today.
Thank
So
you
I'm
so
gonna,
much, Cody, for that
yeah,
awesome presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Cody? All right, I'm not seeing any. So thank you again, Cody, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone. We hope to see you all at our next webinar on Thursday, February 20th, where we're going to have Tiffany Davila as our guest speaker. And she is the Public Affairs Officer at the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management. So thank you, everyone, and take care.